We have got 4 very different sort of companies by design. Many more tomorrow. This afternoon's 4 by design are different commodities, different jurisdictions, and I think the theme is, hey, if a guy like Knell can do it, surely a guy like me can do it. Eh? I mean, no, Knell, you know, that's not how I feel about you. I think you're one of our heroes. So come, show your case. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bernard.
130 years, and finally you are succeeding. Eh?
Yes,
Well done.
Yes, yeah. Mining is a marathon. It's not a sprint. So the presentation is very simple. It's not really a presentation. It's just a few points that I'll be referring to as we go along. And it's capital investment strategy. And I must say that having listened to some of the talks earlier today, I might maybe change the sequence a little bit. And in fact, I'm going to go through all 3 of these. This is about as much razzle-dazzle as I can put together. So I'm going to put all of those together because they really talk to each other. They sort of overlap. And take you through these different considerations. The capital investment considerations are the ones on the right. And what we did pursuant to those are the ones on the left. So I'll be referring to some of the different projects that we did and at which stage in our company's existence we were putting those into effect. So the first one, resource optimization and flat average head grade. Having listened to the presentations this morning, there's actually one before that's about survival. And you remember the old Alec Hogg weekends that we used to do. Mark Lamberti used to talk at those, and I remember him once saying that as a business, your number one strategy is going to be survival. So your capital investment strategy is going to be towards how do I make myself survivable. And survival was really, in that initial phase of capital allocation, our primary consideration. And I'm talking 2005 here, when the transition of DRD away from deep level underground mine towards surface reclamation, when that really started, when it became apparent that this is the route that we have to go. At the time, DRD was focusing on 2 very distinct jurisdictions, Indonesia or Papua New Guinea, that region, the Rim of Fire, and South Africa. And our reality at the time was that the executive of DRD was applying all of our capital resources towards that footprint. And here in South Africa, the only money that we had to spend was the money that we made. So, and if we didn't spend the right money in the right place, we were not going to be around for very long. So, initial big capital decision that I had to take in my very young career was allocating 21 million rand, which we were going to make, hopefully, towards fixing up a residue line at the Crown operations, because that's where the potential for cash flow was. Survival meant generating cash, because if we didn't generate cash, there was no money and this business was going to go down. And I suppose the 3 distinct phases in our capital allocation history were survival, first and foremost. And the second one was resource optimization. I'll spend a little bit of time on that. In fact, the second one was building resilience. That was the in-between one. So it's survival, the first one, building resilience, the second one, and resource optimization, which I believe we're at now at this stage. And through these stages and through these phases, the projects became a little bit more ambitious as we went along. So we had put in this residue line, and the focus was now going to be developing the surface operation. It recently acquired Ergo. And the thing with dumps is that the grade is not consistent. They start at like 0.25 gram a ton, and they go all the way up to about 0.45 gram a ton. And if you only mine one, and if you mine the wrong ones, and you don't mine them in the right sequence, or you don't achieve the right blend, then frankly, you're not going to optimize your ore body, and you're going to become less survivable. So what we had to figure out early on was, how do we achieve a profile, a life of mine that assumed a flat average head grade? And that was then going to inform basically also what your infrastructure was going to look like. Because flat average head grade over life, that gives you an indication as to, assuming a 55% recovery rate, what your revenue per ton was going to be. And if you know what your revenue per ton is going to be, then you know what your cost per ton has to be in order to make a profit going forward. And that ultimately depends on two things. The one is economies of scale, in other words, how much you've got to put through your plant, and secondly, your recovery efficiency. Those were the key drivers. And to a large extent, the second phase of investment, the post-survival, initial survival phase, was how do we link up these different sites? Elsburg, 180 million tons, Van Dijk, Topstar, all the way through to Ergo, et cetera, and setting up that network to enable us to get the right blend in the right sequence or the right proportion through this plant. And that was about 360 million rand. At the same time also, or at the time also with internal cash flows, we generated the cash ourselves. You do get to a point though, where economies of scale become limited, where you start bumping against your throughput capacity or throughput ceiling. And you're not going to dilute your cost per ton by just adding to your tons. You've actually now got to start saving on a per ton basis. That's where technology comes in. And our technology came in the way of a centralized water plant, which also beautifully delivered into the environmental capital stock, part of sustainable development. And now more recently, in terms of our solar plant. So the solar plant can save us about 15 rand a ton. And because we could do that now, we no longer have to produce at 2.1 million ton a month at Ergo. In fact, we can only produce at 1.8 million ton a month. But the solar farm has now changed that combination, that cost composite, that relationship between throughput, recovery, and cost, where lower throughput can still achieve the requisite unit cost line. And that's because of that 15 rand saving. So setting up Ergo in the way that we did, that was a big part of building resilience, making sure that we've got the right mix coming from all sorts of different parts. And in fact, now that the technology aspect has come in, we're now in a position where we can focus on optimizing this ore body going forward. So Ergo's had a wonderful run. It was going to close about 3-4 years ago. I think the changes in the gold price has now put us in a position where we can reset this whole thing. And Ergo is now going into Ergo Phase 2. It's actually now linking up a whole new range of assets and, as I say, benefiting from this different cost profile, having put the solar plant in place. So the network I spoke about, the risk, the water I spoke about, power, of course, is also a really big risk. So it's not just the cost saving, but it's having access to that power. The second one, they plan big and execute small. Yeah, we heard a lot about, so where do you get your funding from, et cetera, et cetera. Now, being who we are and having had to focus on cash flow and cash flow generation as much as we did in the early stages, we still actually don't spend money we don't make. We've had to dip into debt occasionally over the years. When we acquired Far West Gold operations from Sibanye, there was a little bit of debt at the time. It's also the only time then we had a small hedge to make sure that we don't start testing some of those debt covenants. But the one thing that we've always tried to do in executing on large projects is, as I say, plan big but execute small, which basically means that right from the outset, at the early stages of this project, you imagine it in its full potential, as big as it could potentially become. And then you start executing, but you start executing in accordance with your capacity at the time, with due regard to your balance sheet and without creating undue balance sheet risk. So you start implementing almost incrementally or in a modular fashion, and you try to get a cash flow as quickly as possible. And Far West Gold is a very good illustration of that point. So when we acquired Far West Gold, the model at the time assumed a 3 million ton a month throughput and approximately 9 billion rand worth of capital. There was just absolutely no way that we were going to be able to do that. I think our market cap at the time was like 2 billion rand. So what we did was manage to secure a plant that was in the process of closing down from Sibanye Stillwater, and also a tailings dam that they were no longer using. And we got to cash flow very, very quickly, like 5 months. We had this plant repurposed, we had it linked up with the main reclamation site, and we also had it linked up with the tailings deposition site, running at 500,000 tons a month. Now, it's a spectacular asset, and it enabled us to really generate very, very healthy cash flows. Unfortunately, at the time, there was a bit of a distortion of this healthy mix scenario because we were mining a very high-grade site. But we kept quite a lot of the cash back, and that cash is now going into Far West Phase 2. So early stage cash flow, and that's enabling us to now build Far West 2. So you may have heard of Vision 28. Vision 28 is the extension of Ergo for about another 15 to 18 years, enabled by the solar farm and the water. Far West Gold Phase 2 is one in terms of which we're building a really large tailings disposal facility or storage facility, the RTSF, coupling that with an upgrade of the plant to a 1.2 million ton a month facility. That's going to cost us quite a bit of money. I think it's about 4.6 million or thereabouts. We have a facility, but now the gold price is helping us. And having invested all of this money to survive well into this embedded resilience, we now can take advantage of this really attractive gold price. And there's some pictures of what it is that we're building, and I'm going to leave that up there, and you can ask some questions about that as we go along if you want. But there's the tailings facility. I mean, we're building a tailings dam that has a 100-meter wide starter wall, 25 meters high. It's going to go up several levels, and it's going to be a downstream dam. So it's going to go all the way down to where this is, 800 hectares, large enough to accommodate everything from Roodepoort all the way through to Carletonville. So that's been the approach in terms of capital investment. I do have to talk just a little bit, if you'll allow me, about sustainable development, because there's talk about ESG and what it does and so forth and so forth. Very early on in my career, the idea of catering only for one stakeholder, class of stakeholders, namely the shareholders, and our shareholders were sort of revolving door shareholders, that really became a little bit hollow. So we had to become relevant also in terms of those stakeholders with whom we had a slightly longer-term relationship. Our employees, to start with, and then secondly also our communities. And there's a lot of focus on trying to become relevant in terms of those stakeholders. And I think the model or the idea that we stumbled upon, that we landed upon, that could facilitate all of this, was the whole idea of sustainable development. And sustainable development, if you read through its various capital stocks, you could see that it's really just a wider, broader, deeper, as far as I'm concerned, more useful version of ESG. And the one thing that sustainable development teaches you, even if you're not focusing entirely on just the different capital stocks, this idea or this notion of integrated thinking. And having listened to some of the challenges that many of the other speakers were talking about earlier today, on getting stuff executed and so forth, I can tell you that one of the biggest problems in companies today that underperform is teams are out of sync. The environmental guy is doing this, the logistics guy is doing that, the purchase department is doing this, the governance and compliance department is running independently of everything else. Integrated thinking, which is core to sustainable development, teaches you not only how to create value, overlapping and integrated value in terms of the sustainable development capital stocks. It teaches you how to approach your job in an integrated fashion. And I'll share one final idea with you with 3 seconds left. Maybe I can go a little bit deeper into that.
Steal 1 or 2 minutes.
Can I steal 1 or 2 minutes? So this is how we do it at DRD. Sustainable development is core to our thinking. Sustainable development is our model. But this is how we apply it also in terms of management approach. At DRD, you don't get paid a bonus because you scored 4 out of 5 on your KPI score, a bonus in proportion to your salary. If you score 4 out of 5 or 3.5 out of 5, you qualify for a bonus. But that bonus is a percentage participation in the product of the collective effort of the entire business, a cash pool. You make money, you earn the right to share in that money. That means that you don't ever end up in front of a door where there's somebody who is so important that he makes you wait for your pump or for your license or for this or for that, because he knows if he makes you wait, then he's burning cash and his bonus is going to be smaller. So that's what integrated thinking, sustainable development-based integrated thinking teaches you. And I think a lot of the problems that we're dealing with here, which we attribute to all sorts of external factors, and this is me being the optimist, is attributed rather to the fact that we're out of sync. Teams are out of sync. We've got little firms running within big firms and running in opposite direction as opposed to pulling together in the same direction. I don't know if anything I said was original, Bernard, but that's pretty much why we are where we are and why I think we're here.
I don't think you need to be original. You are credible. How long have you been running this weird little company now?
So I joined it in 2003. And
when did you become the CEO?
I became CEO of the DRD SA operations 2005 and DRD Gold in 2009, January 2009. So
it's a long
I'm a veteran, yes.
So the successes and the failures are now has got your name next to it, no?
Yes, that's it. The scar tissue is still right there. It's on surface, and yeah, we've been very, very fortunate because I think we adopted the right approach to the business early on, and we're very committed to the 3 Ps. It's actually now become 4 Ps. It's namely patience, perseverance, and prayer. And we've added a 4th one now, planning. You can't do things like these unless you do proper planning. But yeah, so
Hume would not approve of you as a CEO because you're a lawyer by background.
I was very offended by that statement.
You're not a geologist or an engineer.
So. I was very offended by Hume's statement, and I intend to confront him.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. So can we unpack a little bit? So I don't quite know. Why did you end up as some sort of quasi-division of Sibanye? Unpack the logic.
So I'll tell you exactly what happened. So Ergo was obviously it's a one horse show, I think.
One asset, yeah.
There's one asset, and we were going to mine ourselves into a wedge. And the best asset in South Africa from a surface operation perspective was the Far West Gold combinations, the old Kloof and Driefontein tailings, and they were fantastic, and they were not being developed. So
can you tell us the grades? I would love to know. What are the grades?
I don't want to. I'll tell you, but then I'll have to kill you, Bernard. It's they're really good. They're much
But the
higher
metallurgists would have claimed it was 0.2 grams a ton, and you found a bit more than that.
Well, we're finding anything up to 0.4, 0.5. In fact, when we acquired the asset and we published the numbers, I got an email from a former geologist at Driefontein, and he said, "Young man, you're going to be pleasantly surprised when you see what those grades are, because remember, the grades were so high, the head grade was so high, they sacrificed a little bit of efficiency for throughput because it was doing so well. So they left us an extra 0.2 gram a ton." So, sorry, what was the question?
The question was, what the hell are you doing with Sibanye on your share
so
register?
how was the deal done? So we
see, when two old men talk, you have to keep us on track here. Okay, just keep us on track here.
That's exactly it. That's exact. Somebody offered me a seat on a train the other day.
We can't share our walking stick.
So we approached Sibanye, said we want to buy this asset. We think that we need to put it all together. Dennis Tucker played a key role in that. Neil Froneman said to me right at the outset, "Listen, we could do this, but remember, my board will not allow us to dispose of this asset because of its strategic significance, the tailings dam in particular, unless we take a controlling stake." Went back and said, "Listen, guys, we can own the best asset in South Africa, if not the world, from a tailings perspective. But it means we're going to have to put ourselves under the control of Sibanye." We look at who they are, we look at their value system, we think that it's aligned, and we took the decision, we took the plunge, and I'm glad that we did.
So I was quite surprised when I saw all the tailings all over the country, gold tailings, including the Krugersdorp and so Evander, they're all getting reworked. But I would have thought you had a dominant footprint and could have owned it all. What did I miss? Why did you not expand faster? What inhibited you? What in your strategy are you looking back and say, and that's why we are where we are?
Yes.
For good or for bad? I'm not judging on that.
Yes, no, absolutely. No, I think it's a fair question. Look, you can pretend to grow by buying as many tailings dams as you can, but that's not really growth. That's just really hurting your balance sheet, because you've got to look after these things before you start mining them. And if your throughput rate is determined by the rate at which you can deposit, and you can't really go through 2 million tons, then it means that you get to these new dumps only in 10 or 15 years' time. In the meantime, you have the environmental costs associated with that. And frankly, a lot of these dams are being bought and they're being stored for future use. We think that being patient, maybe it's not lost forever. It might come back to us. But what we own at the moment is what we could responsibly deal with in the next 15 years. The tailings dam that we're building, the one that you saw the picture of, we only have about 250 million tons of material. That tailings dam is ultimately going to be able to take 800 million tons of material. So even if we don't own it, Bernard, we believe that all of the mine waste in the West Rand, from Roodepoort all the way through to Carletonville, ultimately need to end up on that tailings dam, because that's where it no longer poses an environmental threat.
Are these new dams lined?
This is lined. This is also why it's a center line downstream land, because it is lined.
But I mean, simplistically, a new dam meets different standards to the old dams that you are reworking. So I mean, not only do you often move them away from where they no longer should be, but you also deposit them on a much better facility.
Absolutely, it's a complete, but it's a textbook example of not just circular economy, but also sustainable development. Remember, we produce gold without generating a single ounce of additional waste, and using grey water and using renewable energy to do that.
The one thing, when I read the new bill, which apparently not many people in this room has read, goes to this question. The new bill looks to expropriate tailings where they don't obtain the mining right. There's some time issue there. How will this affect your business? How are you reading the new bill when it comes to tailings? Is it an opportunity or a threat, and how so?
No, it is a threat, but it's one that I believe we can manage, and we'll manage it like we've managed any other threat in South Africa. I think one of the reasons why DRD is still around is the fact that if you decide to be here, then be here. Don't be here and then wish you were somewhere else and complain about everything that's going wrong. Do something about it, and there are ways and means of doing it. I mean, Jumskals was sitting here earlier today after he had insulted all the lawyers in the mining industry. He made the point that...
A good point there. Yes. One good point you made.
He made the point that there's only one mining license that's been withdrawn. And we've been going on ooh and ahhing, and they're going to take the license over. Well, that's nonsense. Deal with the issue. Call it by its first name and deal with the issue. We're a constitutional democracy, and we'll run out of problems long before we run out of solutions if you deal with them decisively. I'm not saying that this is mining heaven, but it's if you put your mind to it, and if you are honest to yourself about the challenges that you face. I mean, I remember starting to work for DRD, our security bill was 5 million, maybe 10 million rand a year. We're spending 170 million rand a year on security. Why? Because there's a massive gap in the security that is being supplied by the authorities. So I can spend every Sunday, and complain about just the shocking state that security is in, or I can do something about it. So we assume that we are entitled to protect our staff and to protect our assets, and that we can establish proportionate capacity to do just that. And that's what we have, costing us 170 million rand. But we can afford to do that. And so on and so on and so on. The same applies to water, the same applies to power, the same applies to everything else. This bill is a bill. There are going to be hundreds of conversations before it's implemented, and even after it's implemented, it's not the end of the world. Once again, we're a constitutional democracy, and maybe one of the benefits of being a lawyer in mining is that you see things for what they are. And many lawyers will tell you what the limitations are that the law imposes on what you do. I have a slightly different approach because when I was a lawyer, my clients were in really big trouble, and I had to be a little bit more innovative. So I use the law as a tool, as a machine to see where can the law, if applied innovatively, where can it take me? It's never left me down. It's never let me down, rather. We've obtained licenses when senior counsel said that we wouldn't get them, not by lying or by manipulating anything, but just being a little bit more innovative and using law for the potential of the law as opposed to the restrictions and so forth. So it's not all lost, Bernard. It's going to be interesting that we're going to be saying some nasty things to each other and so forth. We're not budging on this. That's maybe one other thing. There is no room for compromise on this act. There is no free carry sort of going to be facilitated in terms of the minerals of South Africa. I think we've done our part. I think we've made the contribution in good faith. We've added very significant value and created an opportunity or a platform for that to happen. And going forward, I think there's going to be a very strong position, a very strong stance taken in terms of attempts to make up for the lack of political capital by sort of trying to resuscitate something that, we've pretty much moved past it. But it's definitely not lost.
Just to scare the living daylights out of the next three presenters, I'm now going to take the conversation uncomfortably a little bit more personal. After so many years, surely you must be bored stiff. Your strengths must be corporate strengths. Your weaknesses must be corporate weaknesses. Even Warren Buffett is retiring. Talk to us about, hey, geez, how many more years of Neil Pretorius at DRD?
I think I'll retire the day that when I go to Exco and I propose something, my colleagues say to me, my goodness, that is such a damn good idea.
You know they're online, eh? You know they are. You know they are listening to this.
The day that happens, the day we have this, we actually joke about it. It's fully supported. I never hear those words. I stumble out of Exco and I'm tired. I need to lie down on the couch in my office and just take a nap for 15 minutes. So the day they start agreeing with me, that's the day I believe that my job's done, and then I'll move on. Then I've become irrelevant.
Ladies and gentlemen, yes, it must be nicer to be a geologist, perhaps even an engineer. I actually think it's about the caliber of the person, the commitment, and I think we can all see why Neil Pretorius has led a very old, stale, dying business into a future which is spectacular. One of our heroes, Meneer Pretorius, baie dankie. Thank you for it. We're now going to go from a very polished Afrikaans English accent, which is almost indistinguishable from Santon English, to the royal accent of James Campbell. He's now King Charles is getting lessons from him for speaking properly. And you're a bloody diamond miner. Are there honest people in diamond mining? Over to you, James.
Well, let me first say that I was in London last week and Prince Charles drove past and waved at me. How about that?
No, I'm saying nothing, eh?
I'm not going to answer the question either about are there any honest people in diamond mining. What I'm going to tell you today is a story about the discovery, the rediscovery, the corporate action, and very importantly, the economic returns of a diamond mine in Botswana. This has been published by the Botswana Institute of Geological Science, because often history is written by the victors, and in this time, I wanted to make sure that history was properly written. I did circulate my presentation to some colleagues of mine, and one of them was a lawyer and made amendments to this disclaimer, so it's all really good stuff.
No, I can summarize it. I've done it for years. Whatever I say is probably a lie. Nothing I say you can hold me to, and you can't sue me. So,
good summary. Yeah. Thank you, Bernard. I'm not going to pay you a fee for that either. So I'm going to firstly start with where we are today, because I think that's actually very, very important. Then I'm going to take you back to the 1960s, about the discovery and early assessment. I'm going to fast forward to the year 2000 to look at the rediscovery and evaluation. I'm going to then pause for some reflections and conclusions. And interestingly enough, my very final slide, I think, answers the question that Bernard asked Neil right at the very end, or I hope it does. So what is Karowe mine today? It's situated in northeast Botswana. It is in the middle of 85 kimberlites. Kimberlites are basically extinct volcanoes. And in this area, you have 8 or more have been diamond mines. So it's a very, very prolific part of Botswana. It's just south of the Makadikadi Pans and northeast of the Central Kalahari Game Reserve. And just next door to Karowe, you have the world's largest diamond mine, which is 118 hectares and still going strong 50 years later. Bernard always asks me to put a pretty lady with diamonds in my slides. Well, here we go. The exceptional thing about Karowe is the number of large diamonds it produces. It's produced 6 diamonds over 1,000 carats, including an almost 2,500 carat stone. And you'll see the numbers in this picture. And it's quite extraordinary you have such a beautiful diamond that can kind of sit in the palm of your hand. So despite the woes in the diamond industry at the moment, these kind of diamonds are in very high demand because they're bought by ultra-high net worth individuals. This is good. But what is actually...
Sorry, can you go back? I wasn't done looking at the gold. Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay. Well, people often say that a diamond industry person like myself just focuses on the beauty of the diamonds and the value of the diamonds. Yes, we do that. But what you'll see peppered in this presentation too as well is about the amount of money this has also made. And you'll see the second bullet here. This has produced $271 million in dividends, including reporting a dividend in its second year of operation. And I don't think there are very many mines out there that have produced a dividend in its second year of operation. So let's go back to kind of the beginning, the 1970s and the 1980s. At that time, De-Beers discovered what was called AK6. It was considered too small, had poor mineral chemistry, and it had low grade, so it was kind of put in the back drawer. But I think it's very important to realize at that time what else was happening in Botswana and in the world. Well, in Botswana, De Beers had found Arapa, which, as you saw from the couple of slides earlier, was a massive mine. And they'd also found Letlhakane, and they were shortly about to find Draneng. So there was basically almost like a surfeit of natural diamonds. But at the same time of that, there was we were going through a period of economic stagflation. There was a stock market crash. Dow Jones lost 45%. The LSE's FTSE 30 lost 73%. So meanwhile, the explorers were finding all these wonderful things, but they couldn't sell the diamonds. So it was a period of very, very interesting corporate history. So fast forward to the 2000s, where we started to look at these old kimberlites, because there's a saying in the exploration industry that every time there's a change in technology or a paradigm shift in technology, your exploration clock starts ticking again. So we looked at AK6. It wasn't any 3.5 hectares anymore. It was 10 hectares. It wasn't 2.5 carats per 100 tons anymore. It was now 25 carats per 100 tons. But like the discovery times, the economic times were horrible. Now, those of us who've got a little bit of grey hair will remember the 2009. We called it Annus Horribilis at the time. It was a global financial crisis. You couldn't raise anything. Interestingly, when I was running African Diamonds at this time, a commentator said to me, well, we'd prefer to invest in the Royal Bank of Scotland than in you. Well, our share price went up, and the Royal Bank of Scotland's actually collapsed because it was part of this kind of financial aftermath. But as with any mine, there's always a good legal story, and there's always a kind of a corporate story that sits behind this. And I'm not expecting you to read all of this, but I'm going to lift out 3 really important points. The first one is in the middle. Our joint venture partner at that time, which was a very large corporate, decided that this was a sub-economic operation, and they wanted to put a retention license over it, which is allowable in Botswana law, but it's done by ad hoc decision by the minister. So it's not as in the form of a regulation. So we launched an urgent High Court interdict against this large corporate, and we won urgency, which was fantastic, absolutely superb, and that basically paved the way for the award of the mining license. Then I've mentioned about 2009. Later I'll talk about the capital. The large corporate couldn't fund the operation, so we were tasked with trying to find a buyer. For those of you who remember 2009, this wasn't a very, very easy time to actually find a buyer, but we did, and we found probably one of those phenomenal mining entrepreneurs I've ever met. He's passed on now, so may his soul rest in peace. But he funded this, and it was quite an interesting anecdote. How did he fund this? Well, he invited me to Paris for dinner, and I'd got no money at that time, but I managed to kind of get there. He kind of poured a lot of red wine down my throat, asked me a whole load of questions. Then in the morning he said, we go for a 10-kilometer run, and then I'll tell you my answer at breakfast, which he did, and he bought it. And the check was made out to the corporate person within a week. Now, how about that? No wonder he is a billionaire, and people like us are possibly not, maybe with the exception of Bernard. And then the final point, he made it quite clear that once he'd bought out the large corporate, that he would buy us out too, and being a gentleman, he did, and he gave us a large premium for it. It was not without its drama, though. Sorry, it's not moving on. During this particular time that we were like front page of the Sunday Times, we were front page of the Mining MX, and one of the old editors of the Mining X is sitting at the back, and there was, I remember in the business section of the Sunday Times one Sunday, it called me a traitor in Afrikaans, because it basically referred to my corporate history with De-Beers, but they forgot that I was no longer working with them, and I had my own shareholders at that time. Now, these two pictures were taken only 1 year apart, but I think you can probably see it looks like 10 years apart if you actually look at it now. So, a few reflections. Firstly, from a technical perspective, I've already spoken about the old adage, and I tried to find a reference for it, and it was Mark Bristow, would you believe? He was the one who kind of actually said this.
Not surprised.
But it's really important. So whenever you go and look at new areas, always look at, are there changes in geological models? Are there changes in technology, whether it be exploration technology, whether it be metallurgical technology, which could change things? And the fundamental issue with this is that people did not know how to value large, high-quality diamonds. It was qualitative. And the corporate didn't understand this. We sort of understood it, and it was published in the SAIMM in 2009. And that was the very foundation of the value of this mine, these very, very large, beautiful diamonds. So there's a lot of kind of technical considerations underpinning this. There are also, as you would imagine, if any of you have joint ventured with a major, or if you're a major and you've joint ventured with a junior, there are lots of different dynamics at play here. We were joint ventured with a major who I'd worked for 20 years, but we were listed on the Botswana Stock Exchange and the London AIM market. We had shareholders who were quite different, and we could move differently and do different things. And nowhere could that be seen more clearly than actually if you look at the capital range of the mine. On the left-hand side, De-Beers were looking at $380 million. We could do like a postage stamp operation for 88, but the equivalent, which is being done by the current operators, Lucara, was 165. So it's less than half the capital, but for exactly the same nameplate capacity. And phase one was $120 million and was delivered on time and on budget. And I will mention the name because they're one of the key sponsors, DRA, so thank you very much indeed. And delivered on time and budget, which meant that we could produce dividends in the second year of operation. Economic value. Now, this is really important. I'm going to more focus about how much money you would make rather than how big you are in terms of market cap. If you were a private investor who invested in African diamonds at the very beginning, you would have made 90 times your money. If you came in at the beginning, at the listed company level, you would have made 25 times your money. If you invested in every single capital raise, which is probably the most realistic way of actually looking at it, all the way from the very beginning all the way to the end, you would have made 10 times your money. Now, this is a rarity, and I feel very, very blessed to be part of it. And most of us exited a long time ago, because if you look at the graph in the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see that as you progress from surface to underground to get deeper and deeper, things become less and less economic. In particular, if you only have one asset which you are mining. So, from a conclusion perspective, corporate-wise, I think I've mentioned about different strategic agendas between juniors and majors. It's always an interesting thing. I've actually joint ventured with Alrosa as well, a Russian company, but that was quite good because the Russian manager and I got on well, and we both drank large amounts of vodka and beer. So that kind of greased the relationship. Cash is king. We all know that, especially at the bottom of the cycle. If you have cash, you can do particularly well. And from a technical perspective, I've spoken about the challenges with a large diamond valuation, and I've also spoken about a really important thing which is often missing, is the value of qualitative information, particularly if it's seen through the eyes of someone who's been there and done that a great deal of time. On the right-hand side is a kind of an off-print of the the case study which is where this is published. So from a personal perspective, and I wanted to add this because I think it's important for those aspirant junior entrepreneurs in the business. Firstly, you've got to prepare to fight a very tough legal case with a well-funded opponent. We had some outstanding lawyers. Sadly, the guy who led the case has passed on. And we went up against a legal team which was like almost this room. I can remember it now. I almost cried, but we won. And we never gave up. You've got to develop a thick enough skin so when all of your friends see you in the Sunday Times and think you're a traitor, you haven't done anything wrong, really. You're just doing what your shareholders actually asked to do. Thirdly, and this will resonate with many, many, many juniors actually here, you've got to be prepared to run your company with minimal overheads and with no income for many, many months. I think with African Diamonds, we probably didn't have any money for 6 months. And it is always, can we survive another week or two to kind of get the deal done, which we did. Never shortchange yourself on getting the best technical experts, never. Because that's how we were able to kind of crack the large diamond code. But typically, they actually own their own small businesses. They're kind of quite esoteric doctors of metallurgy and geology on the like. And then trust in your own judgment. And my kind of personal motto in this is never say die. Thank you, Bernard.
Oh, James. Please leave that on, if you don't mind. So, I mean, the audience is asleep. You're boring. Nobody sent any questions. So you and I are going to have to...
Oh, go there.
Yeah, I know. Yes, but I told you, nobody's interested in diamonds. Not even I am. But I personally love the space of assets that don't fit in one corporate structure and or cycle and the opportunities there. I mean, this is a classic case. Where else do you see that? Because, I mean, on the program, we've got mines reopening in Namibia. We've got many examples of this type of thing. Is that an area where you think typical junior miners and entrepreneurs should pay more attention? Should we go back to assets left behind by the majors?
Bernard, absolutely. Could I answer it on the next slide, which actually talks about the future?
I thought you'd done.
No. I said that I had left kind of the best. It's a very, very good question, because often people think that, has everything big been discovered? I'm not sure if many of you are aware of the so-called very large copper discovery made by Gold in northern Zambia. Well, northern Zambia and copper has been going for, 60 years?
Yeah.
A very long period of time,
perhaps,
and Anglo-American and vast numbers of companies have gone there and actually explored. They've developed brilliant mines. They've kind of gone up and they've gone down. But Bill Gates, Jack Ma, Jeff Bezos, and kind of all the world's kind of tech entrepreneurs put a lot of money into looking at vast amounts of data. And typically what I think they did, and I think this goes to your question, is it wasn't necessarily data which was coming from copper mining companies, but other mining companies, but then they used it because often these large majors get quite myopic on their particular subject. So if you're De-Beers, it's diamonds. If you're Anglo Gold, it's gold. But the data you collect is geological data and could have a vast amount of other stuff actually in it. So I think one of the future areas is harnessing large amounts of data, looking at it through the eyes of AI and some fancy stuff there, but also looking at it through the eyes of new technology, whether it's mining technology, processing technology, and also in the eyes of new geological deposits. I remember when we were looking at some gold deposits in Mozambique, and the gold models we were looking at there had never been seen in Africa before. And I passed it over to a gold expert, and he said, well, it's very common in South America, but we've never seen it here, so it probably doesn't exist. And I said, why? It's the same geology, same age. So we went back, and yes, there it was, different geological models. So geology, like science, like engineering, is always evolving. And so you must keep abreast of that and keep your eyes wide open.
Very good. Now, very few people successfully grow up in the mighty Anglo. You sat at the feet of the Oppenheimers, literally, in the office. You stepped out of it. Arguably, you're extremely successful in this a different space. How the hell? Did you go for a brain op, or what happened between corporate James and this James? Share your journey.
Bernard, it's actually really quite a simple thing, and I consider myself blessed about the timing. As in any corporate, it's dead man's feet. My boss, who was a director of geology, there were 3 people who were kind of in the running for it. And I wasn't the person who actually got the job. And so the person who got the job asked the other 2 people to leave. And
No. Is that how it works?
yes.
I'm so shocked.
And so it's actually, I can remember it now. You don't know what to do. You've worked in a corporate for 20 years. You've worked all your way kind of going up through the system. You have no idea how to work in the real world. But what was really, really good, I was a project manager at De.B.S for this particular project. And it was joint venture with De.B.S, and my boss, and bless him, Bill McKechnie, phoned up the chairman of African Diamonds and said, I've actually got the perfect managing director for you, because he's just been retrenched. So it was like a baptism of fire. So I often put my kind of technical understanding of diamonds and kimberlites and geology, and I compliment De.B.S for all of that. But for my corporate understanding and raising money, and you've hosted him before, because I'm now running my 3rd company under him, is Dr. John Teeling, who's still going strong at 80 and passes his best regards to you.
No, what a man.
Yeah.
What a man. These social media pictures of yours, and I'm not talking about the ballet now, I'm talking about you being out there in the bush in this English Toyota Prado, what is that thing called? Land Rover. I mean, that thing.
It's Toyota, it's Japanese.
Is it a bloody Toyota?
Yeah, no
I
English.
thought you try and pretend to have a Toyota.
No.
So, I mean, you pretend to be a geologist at heart. Are you really out there in the bush exploring? Or is that just fake? Are you just like a
No,
TikToker?
Bernard.
What are these people on?
If you run a junior and you are raising money from ordinary people, whether it's £10,000, £50,000, etc., you've got to be able to tell them where you're taking the samples, what you're actually doing, and be authentic and credible about it. And what I try and teach youngsters, and I'm hosting the 4th year VIT students at Marsfontein actually this Saturday, is that you can never lose sight of your core discipline. So Botswana Diamonds is an exploration and development company. I'm a professional geologist and kind of part-time engineer too as well on it. And the minute you start to lose that thread on your technical discipline, then I think you must go and work for a corporate or go and do something else. I think it's absolutely critical. We're a one permanent person company. And we use virtual accountants, lawyers, drillers, etc., to come and support us, doing campaign work when we need it. We could have thousands at one point, we could have nobody at some point. So we've got to be able to do this, and if I can't actually keep direct base in terms of the core discipline, I think we would be lost.
I think Hume Scholes may approve of your geological skills, but I'm not going to ask you. I want to go to the online questions just quickly. You may not want to answer this one. Any comment on the current state of Karowe?
I think I've answered that one possibly earlier, that it's a surface operation that's gone underground, and it's a one-asset company, and they are being challenged because of that. And I think the overlay challenge behind that is the state of the diamond market at the moment, which is poor.
Can we go there? This is the next question. What would you say are the prospects of the diamond industry going into the future with the advent of lab-grown diamonds seeming to take significant market share or affecting the price?
I think we're going through a fundamental change in the diamond market at the moment. It was kind of catalyzed when the Lightbox sold synthetic diamonds or lab-grown diamonds into the jewelry industry. That kind of spawned a whole load of wannabes. So the American market, which is 50% of the world's market, is now 70% lab-grown diamonds. So at the bottom end of the market, it's taken a large chunk. Top end of the market is still fine. But what it will need in order to find a new path, I don't think it will ever go back to what it was in the past. It will be a very new future and could be bright, is the successful sale of De Beers by Anglo-American. Whatever shape or form that might be. It's a bit like if you've had a house on the market for a year and a half, like De Beers has been on the market for a year and a half. It's got to be sold. It's got to go to someone who is passionate, who is knowledgeable, who has a strong marketing drive and a clear vision. And if they have that, then the diamond market will start to perform again, but probably never to what it was in the past.
When I see Z.B.S repositioning now around lab-grown diamonds and where they fit in, I get that. But then I cynically think, but Z.B.S, did you not make this problem? Did you not contribute to this problem? Did the diamond industry make their own problem with this lab-grown diamonds or not? I'm an outsider, so I'll just go on what I read and see.
I've got to be careful what I say here, but yes, I agree with you there. My previous chairman, who you quite rightly said was one of the Oppenheimers, would have said, over my dead body would we do this. Because once you kind of confuse in the eyes of your customer the value proposition of a diamond, you're done. So there was a wonderful little TikTok video which went on, I don't do TikTok, but it went on to LinkedIn. And what this video did was, it was a very young, dynamic New York diamond entrepreneur, and she went and interviewed several couples who had bought what they purported to be natural diamonds on the streets of New York. She photoed, and they went in and she asked, could I test them? And of course, you know, the man said, no, I'm not sure about that. And the woman said, yeah, no, please, no, we'd like to test these things. And there were two video cameras going, one in the room, one next door. Well, half the diamonds which were tested, which were purported to have cost thousands of dollars, were synthetic diamonds. And so you can imagine the handbags flying and the kerfuffle going actually next door. And the problem is now you've let that cat out of the bag, because it's unlike a Louis Vuitton handbag or something, which may or may not be real. I don't know who's actually got them here and whether you know whether they're real or not. But it's even more difficult to tell a natural diamond from a synthetic diamond.
Don't look at my wife.
I'm not looking at anybody.
Don't look at Tricia. So next year, as a free service, we will at the door test your diamond. Okay? As a free service, bring your wife and her diamond, and we will test it for you. I must say, again, as somebody who watched from the outside, it looked like a moment of madness. It truly looked like madness to create this perception that, you know, I mean, it was brain damage. Yeah.
But what separates us from animals? What separates us from animals is things such as love and the expression of love and things like that.
He's getting very
You're just a boring old gold miner, that's what you are.
For a geologist, for a geologist. So, James, if you spoke to a young person who's keen to get into mining in southern Africa, where? What is the commodity and where would you go?
In southern Africa?
Yeah.
I thought Gervais Williams and the other gentlemen coming from London were pretty accurate, and having been in London last week, that seems to be where the money is going, gold.
But I'm looking for the ore body now. So where will you go look for the ore body so that you can go to London for the funding?
Do you think I'm going to give my IP away?
You know, really, I don't know.
Well, let me tell you that we actually found a new greenstone belt in a neighboring country which had not been seen before using artificial intelligence.
I'm so glad I follow you on social media. I will see where you were.
Only once this week.
You see, I've got my own IP. The reason I thought James's presentation should land is not everybody is a geologist, but he is. Not everybody has got the means to go and explore. And yet, in a cyclical business, there are opportunities. I mean, Neil shared with us, he's running a successful business under tailings of a previous generation's worth of mining. Over the 2 days, we're going to see the reopening of old mines. I mean, there are so many opportunities, and this is a spectacular, spectacular success story. One of the reasons why investors back management is somebody who's done it once. It's more likely to succeed a second time than somebody who's never done anything like this. Huh? So, I mean, you could see why. He's perhaps going to find funding easier than me, and so it should be. But somewhere you have to go and do it the first time and build up your credibility. Mr. Campbell, as always, you'll be back again. Bye, donkey.
Thank you, Bernard. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, see, I tell you, I must put a tracker in that Toyota of yours. I mean, greenstone I like it a lot. Okay, now I'm going to talk about something I know even less about. Is it possible? Let's give it a go. Shammy, where are you?
Somewhere.
Ndaramo Resources. I mean, this is the ugly face of coal mining. Come, ugly face, come join me here. You destroy our environment. Do you want to speak or do you want to talk? Sit.
What's the difference?
Sit here.
I'm not English like James says. So
Listen, you can anyway never match my quality of English, so just drop it, okay? There's no translation service. Shammy and I both speak English, so pay attention, okay? This is English. Shammy, tell us about this company of yours. Give us the 5 or 10 minute version. How did you get to where you are as a company?
Thank you very much, Bernard, and everybody. I would like to say, James, I'm also a geologist. You might not remember, I actually tried selling him a diamond mine in Bujumai in the DRC when I was a banker.
A banker trying to sell a diamond mine in the DRC?
Yes. Full circle.
I tell you, this plot writes itself. I mean, there's a carry on.
The only thing I can tell you at the end, there was no deal because he was smarter than all of us. He could even see the artificial diamonds coming out of a natural pit. So part of it, I suppose, is that at some point in my life, yes, I was a geologist. I started my career actually at Iscor mining, 1997. Long time ago. I've always thought that we could find ourselves one day building a mining company. So fast forward.
Can I pause there?
Yes.
I want to test the arrogance with which you thought that.
Yeah.
No, because I'm interested.
Yeah.
I meet a lot of people who very early on assume they're going to build a mining company. I never did. And so this is a sincere question. What the hell made you think that you could build a mining company? I mean, what were you drinking?
Funny, at that time I was a teetotaler. The truth is, yes, I became, I was a geologist. I was actually posted at Postmasburg, where Kolomela is today. I was a project geologist there. At that time, Iscor Mining came out with a strategy of core commodities. So I was sitting at Sishen Mine, reading this strategy, and then I decided to send an email to Dr. Konfakonia, and I said to him, hi, I actually do not agree with the strategy the company has come up with. I'm in my 20s, early 20s.
How old were you?
I think I was 24.
Yeah, okay.
So I said, I don't agree.
That explains some of it, but still not all of it.
So I then said to him, he said, why? I said, in mining, what are we selling? We're selling the skills to mine at the lowest cost. We are not even in charge and in control of the prices we get. So how can you have a core commodity that you don't control? You are in South Africa. You have to go and hunt this. I mean, are you telling me that tomorrow if I come in there and I show you a PGM deposit that can make a 49% return, because you did not classify it as core, you're not going to take it? That's how Dr. Konfakonia became my mentor. We met a few times. I remember because there was a lot of commotion at Sishen because he asked to see me when he flew down there. You should have seen those bunch of Afrikaners being scared that I'm going to report them that they only speak Afrikaans and not English. So Dr. Konfakonia literally took me under his wing, and we just started chatting about mining. Fast forward that at some point, I did Northern Cape, I did Moatize in Mozambique. I also did KZN when Iscor was starting the heavy minerals project. I was also there. So when the mine manager came in there when I was in KZN, I used to drive around in a bakkie because I was a project geologist. When they opened the mine, I still drove home with a bakkie, and then I was then disciplined that I left with a bakkie that belongs to an employer. I said, well, that's my job. He says, no, this is now a mine. You can't do that anymore. And then again, I called Corn. I said, I think I'm done here. That was when he then arranged that I became a commodities analyst, actually, at Iscor. That became Campbell at the time. Part of what I knew was that I am a builder in my head. I've always thought that I can be able to coordinate people and activities to be able to put something together. And I remember when I ventured into banking, again, Dr. Korn said to me, don't even fool yourself, you're not going to be a career banker. You love mining. It will be a pity if you find yourself swallowed there. You've got to come back to mining. I did banking for a while until I understood how you borrow money and how you fund things. I think at some point you might have been my client when I was at Nedbank, Harmony. Gave them a lot of money. Out of that one day I then thought, well, maybe it's time to go try building that mining company. I now understand geology. I now understand how you fund these things. I now understand how you put together a feasibility study.
Yeah,
Let's
it
go
sounds good, but then coal. Okay, come on, jump through all this
Yeah.
nice story, and then you go into coal. Of all the things you could have gone into.
Yes, because it is the same coal that at some point in South Africa we had the cheapest electricity in the world. But I bumped into a few interesting partners who were already in the coal sector, who were already mining.
Interesting as in? Kiwi, interesting, I mean, like, what do you mean by interesting?
Just interesting.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, we'll unpack it later.
Yeah, we will unpack it later. So through some of the partners that I met at the time, the easiest and the most accessible thing that we could do at the time was actually in coal. And that was the time when, obviously, people were beginning to understand a bit more about how Eskom buys coal.
Just give us a date stamp. Where are we now? 2010?
2009.
2009.
Yes. Some of you might know that, yes. I mean, Ndaramo is born out of the company that used to be called Universal Coal. So I'm one of the co-founding members of that company. We ran to Australia. We raised 250 million rands, came back, developed our first mine in Delmas. It was a farm that eventually became a mine. We called it Kangala. It is actually the first coal that was burned out of Kusile power station was from our mine. We were the suppliers at the time. Then obviously out of the black economic requirements, and out of the requirements out of Eskom, they're needing 51% ownership, my colleagues and partners then said, look, maybe you might want to look at setting up something that we can work with you. And that's literally how Ndaramo gets born in 2013. And we had a partnership with Universal Coal, where obviously they had a management agreement with us that will manage everything there. And then when that ended, Ndaramo now had to take over. So what you're seeing is literally a morphology of Universal Coal that had a partner who was prepared to sit and learn and wait until we thought we've learned enough. And then we then took a chance to then pretty much look at assets that bigger companies, we thought that they probably might not be able to make them work. And that's how we started buying assets from Exxaro. We bought NCC. We ran two of the oldest mines in South Africa, coal-wise. Turned that around. We supplied Eskom. We've been supplying Eskom since 2012. I think annualized now from what we have, we are looking at around 8 million tons of coal to Eskom. We have definitely cut back on the export side because obviously TFR is not as efficient as it used to be. But we were born out of the hunger to be able to look at assets that we think we might be able to run them better, get the right kind of people, and to be able to, bear the brunt of getting that coal sales agreement out of Eskom. I mean, and that's literally how Ndaramo was born, and it became what it is today. We finally bought an asset out of a company that is not Exxaro in Wonderfontein, in the Belfast area. I mean, combined between the two mines that we run, the NBC and Wonderfontein, we do 450,000 tons a month of coal to Eskom. We still have NCC on the other side as well. We have got the largest resource in Delmas, almost 600 million tons, closest to Kusile, so we do believe that we're likely going to be one of the anchor suppliers to Kusile going forward. That is how, I suppose, Ndaramo Resources was born. It was born out of getting like-minded people who were hungry enough. I mean, I heard James talk about working for 6 months without income. I worked for 3 years without income.
Yeah, but you were a banker, so you had lots of stashed away money.
If that's what they told you, they were lying. But yes, there was, look, you got to plan for things like those. But one thing I would re-emphasize when it comes to that is it's not a solo journey. You got to find the right kind of people who will work with you, who are prepared to take risks with you. And you got to be prepared to learn. I mean, we got going, I remember when we were doing road shows in Australia, when I was learning what RBCT means, you know, Richards Bay Coal Terminal. And we did not have allocation. Everybody kept on asking me about that allocation. That was 2020. Eventually, we got into the Quattro process, as it's called, that one facilitated by the DMRE. Our first in was 50,000 tons a year.
Wow.
A year.
Wow.
That's like four trains a year. It was 2010, 2011, yes. I mean, I'm proud to say today, as I'm speaking to you, Ndaramo Resources is almost to be a shareholder at RBCT through the Wonderfontein acquisition. So it has been a journey over 15 years. It took us 15 years to find yourself where you can think that you will be part of the infrastructure that exports coal out of South Africa.
So can I quickly get a few numbers on the table here for us? So what is your production now per year? What percentage of that goes to Eskom and what percentage do you export?
Percentage-wise, we're looking at 20% export. The majority is Eskom. Our strategy is to have mines that does both local market, meaning Eskom, whether it's nuts and peas and Eskom. We've been trying hard to sell coal to Sasol. If there's anybody at from Sasol here, can we talk, please, after this? But our strategy is to focus on the local market. It is the export market, obviously, that gives you better bang for your buck, no doubt about that. But you are limited by the infrastructure, logistically, to be able to dream bigger than that. So we tend to make sure that we find assets that gives us that flexibility to be able to do that.
So annual production of?
Annual production, like I said earlier on, you are looking at 7.2 million tons Eskom, okay? And annualized, and then 1.5, we can stretch it to 2 million tons export.
So that time when you went into mining, I would sit and say, yes, that was a political mess time. Corruption was rife. Here you sit, were you a beneficiary of that corrupt times?
It depends on what you mean by benefit. It depends on what you mean by benefiting. I think what junior companies do well, there is enough people complaining about, I mean, I'm not going to be able to complain about a mining bill like Scholes will. I'll leave that to him. I will rather focus on the inefficiencies of the system and see if whether I can build a business around it. There is enough people complaining about what's wrong. So what you got to do is to find a way of understanding how do you navigate all of these challenges. It was difficult because you are launching a bill at the time, and you are introducing a new act, late 90s. I mean, you're introducing a new act that, just like in mining, you take a resource, a geological resource, and you give it to 10 mining engineers. They will give you 10 different mines from the same geological resource. Yeah. So you are launching an act at the time when, I'm not even sure how many legal firms we have in South Africa. If we've got 100, you're going to get 100 different interpretations of the same law. So it is always going to be an ongoing debate whether it's perfect. So we literally went through a phase where most of the things about the act have been challenged. Why? Because we were learning. But what we did was to make sure that we focus on understanding how the system works with all its imperfections. Okay, so most of the stuff we do is to go and understand from the DMRE, okay, we want to do a section 1 or 2. How do we go about it? because they've never done one before. Believe it or not, the worst place to start to do that is to go to a legal firm. You know, they send a DMRE without prejudice letter for no reason. Whereas you are supposed, why? Because it's fruitless to go and think that you're going to go and meet a regulator and debate something that they also don't fully understand legally until somebody rules in a court. I mean, we have, part of my job when I went through some of the stuff I did, I was one of the teams that lost a court in the Concord through Mkwe Platinum at some point. We were all learning. And believe it or not, we are still learning. As long as there are lawyers, we'll be learning. Because there are no direct straight lines in terms of, with the lawyers now, okay, were you standing or sitting when you said this? And if you are sitting, it means something different. If you are standing, it means something different. So for a junior, what do you focus on? I don't have a lot of money to pay lawyers. You focus on what I can get from the regulator to be able to get on and operate. And we had to learn to understand how coal moves as well.
Now that we passed the niceties, we can have a real conversation.
Let's do.
You must bump into this type of cynicism like, yes, you're successful because, go back to the time. But today you are in good standing with Eskom. Yeah. You're a significant supplier to Eskom.
Yes.
That's factually correct.
Yes. Your
agreements are above board, have survived.
Yeah, very much so. You would have read about us by now if that wasn't here. Yeah, they are.
So you're part of the reason why the lights are on?
Very much so, yeah.
It still doesn't answer, but I've never understood the coal miner, so it still doesn't answer, what the hell are you doing in coal mining? Okay, well, there was an opportunity. Why are you still only in coal mining? So talk to us about 20 years out. Where are you in 20 years as a corporate entity?
Yes. Why are we still in coal mining? It's because it's a business that we think we understand and we can be able to make it work. Our strategy does say that we want to diversify into other commodities. And this is one of the biggest things that I do want everybody who is sitting here outside to understand. It's that we won't be able to go into other commodities without the right kind of partners. We don't want to sit and claim that because we might have been able to run coal mines, we'll be able to run.
I've discovered the greenstone ore body. You and I will talk about that. No, don't talk to him. Talk to me.
That depends. I can categorically tell you now, I'm still sore about what James did to me when I was a banker, so I won't touch diamonds. We should have done a deal. But we will definitely look at any other commodity in a partnership with anybody who can be a good partner, because we don't want to assume that because we know how to mine coal, we can mine gold or we can mine copper or manganese or iron ore. We have tried to get into those spheres. We were quite close in one or two instances. We are still trying to do that. Our aim is to be able to make sure that we continue supplying Eskom. We are aiming for 10% of whatever they buy out there. Last time I checked, they were at 122 million tons annually. I'll be happy if we were to land at around 12 million tons. I'll be happy if I was to supply Sasol as well.
The Sasol thing keeps on coming up. If you get a Sasol deal, I need a commission. It happened here.
Let's talk.
It happened here.
Let's talk. But for us, we're quite passionate. We look forward to the space where we will be able to one day introduce and say to everybody out there that we've finally done a deal with somebody out of coal. The reason why we will continue to do coal, like I said, is that we understand it, but we're looking for like-minded partners to be able to expand into other commodities. We don't mind learning, so we are not looking for spaces where we're going to come and monopolize people's companies. We definitely want to learn. If we make money and some of them are tired, then we can buy them out and we stay. So we do have a very long-term approach. Just like we entered into the green energy space, it was because we realized that coal miners are not banked at the moment. No bank wants to give you money, except the IDC. Thank you, IDC. For those of you in coal, go to the IDC. They do have the money for coal. They do support coal mining. But we definitely are quite keen to expand outside coal and do other things.
I want to touch two specific topics with you to get your learnings shared. The one is the funding. Go back 2009, how did you fund this? How did you fund your growth? Just give us some of the highlights of the funding that you got for this.
Well, it was, like I said, we raised, it was me and my colleagues at Universal Coal at the time. What we did was actually, we went around Mpumalanga SA and then we signed a whole lot of prospecting rights where we said we'll invest directly on the ground drilling and then we'll earn in up until a certain percentage. And we literally took that and flipped that into an AIM shell, which we then renamed Universal Coal PLC. And then when we realized that Australians love coking coal, we ran to Australia, we signed up a coking coal transaction at some point which got us the mileage to be able to raise that. After that, it was
Quantum, are we talking?
250 million rands at the time. Okay. After that, it was literally, that is what we used to pretty much build our first mine. When we got the contract with Eskom, and it was all pretty much organic. We bought the assets out of Exaro, out of our own cash that we were generating from the first mine, all of that. I mean, to put that into perspective, Universal Coal only started paying dividends 9 years later from listing. So it took us a very long time. We were quite still focused on growing, and that was when we then felt bold enough that the company was making enough money to start paying dividends. So it's mainly organic. Right now, it still pretty much is, but because we've got a bit of mileage, we're able to convince funding institutions like the IDC to part with very serious money. I think you did mention something earlier on about, if you have ever done something once or twice, you are supportable. I mean, we built very good relationships with traders, especially Glencore. They helped us a lot. I remember when we bought NCC, they literally held our hands, taught us how do you export coal. We learned, and we also dreamed that one day we will be sitting next to them at RBCT. So it is mainly organic. Even now, you fund this development, this growth through your own funds, because like I said, coal mining is still not necessarily being funded by a lot of people there. Traders have come into the party, a lot of them. They seem to be the ones with the money to fund a lot of coal mining development now.
Both the previous two presenters spoke about their model being different to a big corporate model. You take an asset from Exaro, you said. You run it differently, arguably better, you would argue. Just unpack for the audience what is different in your approach. Why could you run a mine or develop an ore body that somebody else wouldn't be? Where sort of headline differences? What's different in your model?
I think number one, it's strategy. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. I have seen mines that are being run by a bigger company where they're just producing one product, an RB1. Whereas you go and check the discard, it still has 17 CV coal that has been dumped. We were prepared to scavenge stuff like that. We were prepared to say, no, it's not going to be a single product. It's going to be multiple products. Some other companies take strategic decisions that, well, maybe it's too hard to find yourself worming through the purported corruption about getting a coal sales agreement at Eskom. We thought differently. We were prepared to go through the process. Even before Eskom started the RFQ process, we were prepared to go through that. So that's another thing as well, that you are able to now stabilize that resource by having an Eskom that is taking coal every other day, and you've got a bit of a niche that you've carved out that you export, which from a profitability point of view makes you more money than what you're going to get out of Eskom. That's that. And I suppose number two, okay, you can claim that you can be nimble-footed in a sense that in bigger companies, things are structured. You got to wait for the board to meet the second quarter until you're going to get a decision. Whereas with us, I can call my fellow director and say, I'm about to do this, this is why, and you'll get an answer and the support immediately, and then we'll do. So it is that. But I think for me, the biggest differentiating factor, it's the part that we were prepared to look at a strategy where both the mines I'm talking about, actually, did not do Eskom before we bought them, both NCC and NBC. But once we got in, they both had contracts, 10-year contract, 7-year contract, NCC, which have now extended, NBC 10-year contract. Then they're both exporting and also supplying Eskom. So for me, in my experience, that has been. So bigger companies tend to have a time lapse in terms of the decision to take, and it's a cyclical business. By the time you decide to go and open a mine at the peak of a coal price, you might find that by the time you decide it has dipped. I don't think there's anything extraordinary that you can say, except that, yeah, your office is literally one floor, not 10. And you just need to you can talk to everybody in one day and you can get a decision.
But you exploit the same ore body, but differently.
Yes.
I want to just understand at the mining level,
Yep.
you insource with contractors. It's contractors operating your mines.
Yes, it's all contractor
Very similar to everybody else in the industry.
Yes.
So you can't say I produce cheaper rand per ton.
Not really. Not really. I think the difference between bigger companies and smaller companies when it comes to that is that, especially the listed entities, there's so much regulatory requirements that cost them so much money that end up being obviously thrown into where the ops are to recover those costs. That by itself will increase your cost base. When you're small, you don't seem to have that. But number two, yes, it's a risk-sharing mechanism, I suppose, in a way, the contractor-based model, because I've seen my contractors struggle and we'll help them out. They've seen us struggle and they'll help us out. So you tend to focus more on the relationship, on how you are operating, because you need each other to stay in business. But cost-wise, yes, I've seen a few benchmarking exercises around. If you strip out what you would perceive to be corporate office costs, we are almost so similar. Salary base almost similar, as well. It's literally on how you choose to look at the same ore body and how you're going to exploit it and market it.
So do you get paid more or less than July?
I definitely get paid less than July.
We'll check that.
No, July doesn't get paid, he gets rewarded. I get paid.
I want to not be too sarcastic. I want to move to...
Yeah.
So when I fly to Nelspruit, I look down on those coal mines, and I'm, as a miner, not sure that I'm proud of the footprint of coal mining. Now, I know some of those mines are still mining, and then you fly over Optimum and a few other mines, and you think, guys, no, surely. Are you, as a smaller, newer operator, are you part of a problem or part of a solution? When we talk about the impact on the environment, et cetera, all the way through to the trust funds, how responsible are you? Because, I mean, that responsibility costs money. You don't like spending money, are you?
Look,
close the circle, close the loop here for me, yeah?
I think if you look at like rehab, you gotta look. It differs from company to company. Our strategy is to do ongoing rehab, where we operate. We take that very seriously because in the end, if you don't do it, it actually eats away your valuation, it eats away your value. So we try our best to make sure that we do the necessary rehabilitation work required. And that is the reason why we are a bit trusted out there today that when we take over even old mines, when we say we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4 things from an environmental point of view, we go and get it done. I wouldn't say everybody will go and do that, but from a company perspective, we are part of the solution. And that is why for us it is important that whatever we set ourselves to do when it comes to environmental management, we're quite serious about it. In another way, it is important to understand that coal mining in the Mpumalanga area has been very haphazard in terms of how environmental regulation has been dealt with as well. You've got a lot of legacy issues there. Junior miners actually get punished more severely than bigger guys.
Just explain to us why you say that.
Well, because you dare do something that is out of line. The inspectors are there immediately, and believe it or not, they will give you that shutdown notice immediately without even flinching. I mean, I'm not going to mention names because it sounds like I'm scammering, but I know our mine was stopped that our water use license expired, and I knew a mine that belongs to a major that had a water use license that has expired 2 years ago. They're still operating. The standards are not the same. But with us, I suppose because they're afraid if we go under, we might not have the money to plug that hole. So that is why we take a very conscious decision to do ongoing rehab. That's when we mine. It is something that we're quite serious about and we take sensitively because it's literally your license to operate. I can't go and ask for the kind of minings I'll go and ask at the IDC if I'm irresponsible in how I mine. When they evaluate you, they look at those kind of things. So we are quite sensitive about that. We're not afraid. I mean, I wish we used technology more to be able to mine better and process better. I mean, we track a lot of sulfur. I mean, I've said this to people even at not Sasol. Sorry, Sasol, not you. Eskom.
The Sasol thing, you must get it out of your
I'm
system.
in love. I've said this even to people at Eskom that, look, I wish we could be more aggressive on how we desulfurize coal at the mines rather than it being desulfurized at a power station. You know, that is not how to do it. My view is let's implement technologies at the mine such that we don't track the sulfur we're tracking to make it Eskom's problem somewhere down the line, which we're just going to keep on, you know, kicking down the can down the road in terms of those emission limits.
So my phone connected, and I've got many questions, so quick answers here. Are you doing any exploration?
No, not at the moment.
Okay.
No.
No, the answer is no.
Yeah.
Okay. Cross, no.
No.
No exploration, yeah.
Emphatically.
I am the one who allowed the questions to accumulate. What happened to the coking coal project in Limpopo? Are you part of that?
No, Ndaramo is not part of that. It still belongs to the company that now owns Universal Coal called Ndaramo Resources. My understanding of it is that it's still there. When we separated...
Why aren't they asking you that question?
Because I actually worked on that project. I actually was one of the founding shareholders of that project. So whoever is asking that knows that when they did their first prospecting right application, they probably used my name as a geologist for that. So
okay.
the roots are very deep there.
When is the Elof project coming on stream?
Well...
That's near Delmas, no?
Yes. Elof has got a contract with Eskom. We are literally going through the numbers to make sure that it can be made to work. My view is we're probably 6 to 12 months out of that. It's literally the reopening of the old Kangala mine. So we're just finalizing the model in terms of how we're going to operate that, but I can safely say that in the next 6 to 12 months, we should be able to go in back there to operate, yes.
Quickly, final round of questions. There are 2 questions dealing with the open rail, open access.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to be a player there, and will that ever replace some of the trucking to Eskom plants?
Now, we're not going to be a player in terms of the logistics value chain, no. We would rather work with like-minded partners who know and understand
Have you got coal that should go on rail to Eskom?
All the coal that Eskom buys is fit for rail. If there's 3 or 4 power stations that Eskom has that have got rail capacity, meaning to offload. I've got 2 contracts actually. 2 of our CSS, NCC and NBC actually do cater for rail. It's up to Eskom to tell us that they want a rail. I think going forward in terms of open access, I like that because we can be able to find like-minded people who we can say, look, we can anchor you with 100,000 tons of coal, even if it's going to the port. You guys go work out whatever you work out rail-wise. You let us know. We will pay you for that service. As long as we're producing, you will be the service provider. That we've done before and will continue to do so. We will never invest in rail infrastructure. We'll rather work with people who know and understand how that works.
So as an arrogant, mad, 20-something-year-old, you had a confaconia in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Are you the confaconia in somebody else's life? Are you mentoring a next guy or girl, a person who's dreaming big, or are you still too busy making your own fortune? Yeah.
I think I've got too many. I am mentoring.
Fantastic.
There is a young man who, if you can humor me a bit, who I met 2011 in Delmas. His name is Thabo Mtao. My first meeting with him, he actually had kidnapped me in a boardroom. We were having a community meeting. He locked the door in the boardroom and he said, nobody's leaving here until we've reached agreement. But I listened to him the entire meeting and he was making a lot of sense. Believe it or not, we worked together with the Delmas community with him. Thabo Mtao actually opened his first mine last year around Delmas. We mentored him. We helped him. I helped him. So we have done that. We have done that, and I think we can be able to do it with multiple people where it's possible. We definitely, as Ndaramo, will want to work with, like I said, when I say like-minded people, is how do we help you have your own mind, if we can, and not to own your mind. Now, if we can help you develop your own resource, we will. And many of the times it's usually availing specialists and scientists who can be able to help you evaluate that and help you go get funding. And we can tell you how we hustled around to be able to get it as well, yeah.
Let's all pay it forward. What a fantastic way to come to the end of this. Thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
very much,
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you. Well, the clever people know the queue's going to be long, so get to the coffee first. We will reconvene in 29 minutes. Thank you very much. Thank you.